The real estate listing never mentioned that the well in Sarah Chen's backyard had claimed 17 lives in the past century. She would have paid more attention to the unusually low asking price if she had known. Sarah discovered this grim statistic 3 weeks after moving to Millbrook, a quaint New England town where everyone seemed to know everyone else's business. Everyone except hers. The neighbors were polite but distant, offering tight smiles and hurried greetings before disappearing behind their pristine white picket fences. The well stood in the center of her backyard like a stone sentinel, its weathered walls rising 4 feet from the ground. A wrought iron cover sealed the top, secured with a rusty padlock that looked older than the house itself. Sarah had initially planned to convert it into a decorative garden feature, maybe plant some flowers around the base. The idea seemed charming in the daylight. At night, however, the well took on a different character entirely. Sarah first noticed the sounds during her second week. Soft splashing echoed from beneath the iron cover, as if something large was moving in the water below. She convinced herself it was probably frogs, or maybe a raccoon that had fallen in. The logical explanation helped her sleep, at least initially. The splashing grew louder each night, accompanied by what sounded almost like whispers. Sarah would lie awake, straining to make out words in the liquid murmurs that seemed to rise from the depths. Sometimes she thought she heard her name being called, but that was impossible. The well was sealed tight. Curiosity finally overcame caution on a humid Thursday evening. Sarah approached the well with a flashlight, her bare feet wet with dew from the grass. The padlock felt ice cold against her fingers despite the warm air. She tugged at it experimentally, surprised when it clicked open with minimal effort. The iron cover was heavier than expected, groaning on ancient hinges as she lifted it. Sarah aimed her flashlight into the darkness below, expecting to see the glint of still water. Instead, she found herself staring into what appeared to be an endless black void. Her light seemed to be swallowed by the darkness, revealing nothing but smooth stone walls that disappeared into nothingness. A droplet of water struck her forehead, cold as winter rain. Then another. Sarah looked up at the clear, starlit sky in confusion. The drops were coming from inside the well, rising upward like reverse rain. She slammed the cover shut and secured the padlock with trembling hands. The next morning, Sarah drove to the Millbrook Historical Society, a cramped building that smelled of old paper and lavender. Mrs. Henderson, the elderly librarian, greeted her with the same strained politeness Sarah had grown accustomed to. "I'm researching the history of my property," Sarah explained, providing her address. "Specifically, the well in my backyard." Mrs. Henderson's face went pale. Her hands shook slightly as she pulled out a thick folder marked with Sarah's street name. "The Whitmore Well," Mrs. Henderson said quietly. "Built in 1847 by the town's founder, Ezra Whitmore. It was supposed to provide fresh water for the growing community." Sarah flipped through yellowed newspaper clippings and handwritten records. The first documented disappearance occurred in 1851. Thomas Bradley, age 34, vanished near the well during a summer drought. His body was never found. More disappearances followed over the decades, always during the driest months when the town's other water sources ran low. The pattern was unmistakable. Every few years, someone would go missing. Always near the well. Always when the town needed water. Most. "The locals started calling it the Well Mother," Mrs. Henderson whispered, glancing around nervously. "They said she demanded payment for her gifts." Sarah's blood turned to ice as she read the most recent entry, dated just 3 years ago. Jennifer Walsh, age 29, new resident, disappeared August 15th. Her car was found parked in her driveway. The front door was left open. She had moved to town only 6 weeks earlier, the same amount of time Sarah had been in Millbrook. "What kind of payment?" Sarah asked, though she already suspected the answer. Mrs. Henderson closed the folder abruptly. "I think you've seen enough for today." That evening, Sarah researched online, cross-referencing missing persons reports with property records. The pattern was even more disturbing than she had imagined. The well changed ownership frequently, always sold to newcomers, always at below-market prices. The previous owners either disappeared or moved away hastily, leaving behind all their belongings. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The offering is due tomorrow night. Be ready." Her hands shook as she typed back. "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "A friend. The well mother is hungry. The drought has lasted too long." Sarah looked outside at her brown, dying lawn. She had not realized how little rain they had received since her arrival. The local news had mentioned water restrictions, but she had not connected it to the well's dark history. Another text arrived. "Meet us at midnight. Come alone. It will be quick." Sarah grabbed her car keys and headed for the door, but her engine would not start. The battery was completely dead, though it had worked perfectly that morning. Her cell phone showed no signal bars, despite having full coverage earlier. She was trapped. As darkness fell, Sarah watched from her kitchen window as her neighbors emerged from their houses. They moved in a silent procession toward her backyard, carrying candles and what appeared to be ropes. Men, women, even teenagers she had seen at the local coffee shop. All of them walking with the same determined, almost hypnotized expression. The procession stopped at her back door. Someone knocked gently, politely, as if they were arriving for a dinner party. "Sarah," called a familiar voice. It was Tom Morrison, who lived 2 houses down. He had helped her move furniture during her first week. "Please, come outside. It's time." Sarah backed away from the door, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Time for what?" "The well mother has been patient," Tom continued in that same eerily calm voice. "But the town is suffering. Our crops are dying. Our children are getting sick. She needs her tribute." "I won't do it," Sarah shouted through the door. "Find someone else." A different voice responded, older and more authoritative. "There is no one else, dear. You live above her now. You're connected to her. She's been calling to you, hasn't she? In your dreams?" Sarah's blood froze. She had been having vivid dreams about drowning, about sinking into endless dark water, while something with pale, reaching hands pulled her deeper. She had assumed they were just nightmares brought on by stress. "The previous owners tried to resist too," the voice continued, "but the well mother always gets what she's owed. It's easier if you cooperate." Sarah ran to her bedroom and barricaded the door with her dresser. She could hear them entering the house now, their footsteps creaking on the old wooden floors. They were not breaking in violently. They moved with the casual confidence of people who had done this many times before. The bedroom window overlooked the backyard. Sarah could see the well clearly in the moonlight, its iron cover now standing open. The darkness inside seemed to pulse like a living thing, and she could swear she saw movement in the depths. Something was rising from the well. At first, it looked like water spilling over the stone rim, but water did not move with such deliberate purpose. The liquid formed tendrils that stretched across the grass toward the house, leaving dead vegetation in their wake. Where the tendrils touched, the earth turned black and began to sink, as if the ground itself was being consumed. Sarah's bedroom door rattled as someone tried the handle. "Sarah, please don't make this harder than it needs to be," Tom called out. "The well mother is already angry. If you fight, she might take more than just you." The water tendrils had reached the house now, seeping through the foundation and rising through the floorboards. Sarah watched in horror as dark stains spread across her bedroom carpet, accompanied by the overwhelming smell of stagnant pond water and decay. She climbed onto her bed, but the water followed, pooling around the legs and beginning to rise. It was not ordinary water. It moved with intelligence, reaching for her with liquid fingers that felt disturbingly warm against her skin. The bedroom door burst open. Her neighbors filed in, their eyes reflecting an otherworldly blue light. They no longer looked entirely human. Their skin had taken on a pale, translucent quality. And when they opened their mouths, Sarah could see that their teeth had become sharp and pointed. "She's been changing us for generations," Tom explained, his voice now carrying a liquid undertone. "Everyone who stays in Millbrook long enough, everyone who drinks from her wells, who uses her water, we're all her children now." The water around Sarah's bed rose higher, and she felt something brush against her ankle, beneath the surface. Something with too many joints and skin, like wet leather. "Don't worry," Tom continued. "You won't really die. Not completely. You'll become part of her, like all the others. And when the next newcomer arrives, you'll help us welcome them too." Sarah felt herself being pulled down into the dark water, but she no longer had the strength to fight. The well mother's embrace was cold and final, and as the liquid filled her lungs, she could hear the whispers of all those who had come before her. "Welcome home," they seemed to say. "Welcome to the family." The real estate listing went live the next morning. Beautiful colonial home, recently renovated, well below market value. The previous owner had moved away suddenly, leaving behind all her belongings. The well in the backyard was described as a charming historical feature, perfect for a garden centerpiece. Someone would buy it soon. Someone always did. And the well, Mother would be waiting.